All right, welcome everyone. We have another very special guest today. It's actually not just a legend of the game, legend of the Premier League, but he is a good friend from 15 years ago. I think we first met, Anton. So it's been a while, man, but great to see you. Thank you so much for coming on.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me. Yeah, man. 15 years strong, bro. It's a long time ago, but like you say, you're not just talking to someone who played the game. You're talking to a friend, man. And I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you for making the time. I know we've been back and forth, and obviously the time zones not super easy. And you got your family, you're busy, you're doing commentary, you're in the mix, and you're building business. So yeah, different time of life. We got kids now, and I just kind of want to dive in, and those that may not know you, because this is a podcast that primarily poker related, driven, a lot of professional poker players. We also do dive into a lot of different worlds, sports included. So, I'm obviously, I played in college. We have a mutual friend, Io, who is how I know you. Maybe give a little background first before we kind of start asking some questions and we go through your career, but let everyone know who you are. I know you're from Peckham, Southeast London, and maybe give a little background on who you are and what what you've been up to, and give me your whole life, like a minute or two, basically.
Okay, no problem. I'm Anton Ferdinand. I played 12 years in the English Premier League for clubs such as West Ham United, Sunderland, and QPR. I grew up in Peckham, Southeast London, which to us in England it's like the ghetto. You call it the ghetto. So an area that wasn't well to do. There was a lot of crime, a lot of knife, gun crime where I grew up, and I was able to stay out of that and able to pave a way into football and have a career. Since retiring, as Jeff alluded to earlier, I've got two children, one on the way, a beautiful wife and a lovely family. I'm now trying to build businesses. I've got my own football academy. I work for a football agency, trying to give back my knowledge to the next generation of football players, trying to steer them on the right path so they can not make the mistakes that I made as a player. It's obviously a lot harder now because of the social media aspect, but I'm sure we're going to get into it. I was part of the social media before the social media began, and there's a story that will tell you that, just based on the web, which got me into trouble. But as I said, giving my insight and my knowledge to the next generation of football players to make sure they have the best possible chance to become the best possible them.
Yeah, amazing stuff. And I mean, as you mentioned back, there was sort of there was an issue as well with back in the day. I guess, you were on it. I don't know. Are you alluding to, you're talking about the one where you went to South Carolina? Are you talking that where? Yeah. So that was crazy, because just to give a little context, one of my very close friends from a long time at South Carolina, I played soccer. I didn't really play. I was left bench, but I was on the team, and my friend Io, who grew up with you and played in the West Ham Academy, he didn't make it to the full team, played over at South Carolina, and then I got to come over a few times. I would actually, just to give people some context too, like I'd never met you. And I came over to London. I was staying on your couch or at your place in London. It was pretty crazy, right? We'd come there, go out, we'd have a good time and go to the games. And it was, you guys are mega stars over there. Again, not so much of a dominant football English Premier League player. Like, for my people might not understand as much how big really it is over there right now. I think people are understanding. We'll just call it soccer for U.S. sake. But it's huge. It's massive. It's like being in the NFL. And it's the show. It's the best league in the world, the EPL. And that was just crazy times. A lot of great memories, and really, again, just appreciate you for always being generous to me, kind. It's like when I was there, I felt like I knew you for a long time. You were just included me, took me out. We were in the box, going out at night, taking care of stuff. Like, it was again, very appreciative and really some great memories. So that was amazing. And just again, to give people some context, that you had played at the highest level. You played in a bunch of different leagues. And I guess one of my big questions is what that was like. What kind of pressure is that like, to come in the youth system at a major academy. I think I saw a statistic. It's like 3% of the players make it to a club, right? Something like that. If you play in a youth system to make it to the first team.
Yeah.
What is that like mentally? What is that a lot? Is it fun? And at what point does it maybe become a lot of pressure where you're like looking around, you got your friends who may make it to the biggest stage and some are not and going to go to university somewhere or, play in a third, fourth, fifth division team or get a regular job. Like, was it always fun or when did it shift to like, this is serious? Like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. How was that experience coming up?
Well, when I turned age 15, you sign a 2-year contract with your academy club. So I signed a 2-year contract with West Ham. They called it schoolboy forms. And after that, that's when you get to 16 is when you leave school in England. And then it becomes a full-time job at the age of 16 when you leave school. But just before that, I didn't think I was going to get the contract at 16. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to play football because I wasn't sure if I was going to get the contract. And I was ready to give it up. I was ready to try and do singing or whatever it is that else I wanted to do. But my father gave me probably the best advice. He said to me, Anton, look, you see, like singing, you can do that after football, but you can't do football after singing. So I suggest you try with football. If you get the contract with football, try. And if it doesn't work out, then sing. If you do get the contract, you can sing after. If you don't get the contract, you can try singing now, basically. And I got the contract, and as you know, Jeff, my older brother is a worldwide superstar through soccer, and he won everything. He was the best in his position, in our position in football. So having him, and he came up through the ranks at West Ham too as a kid. So having him as my older brother, the pressure was already there. I think, and as you know, Io, he was in the academy with me. He didn't make it as a footballer. He was a very, very good footballer, but never made it as a footballer. I think the difference was, for me, I think it wasn't even a case of I worked harder than him. It wasn't a case that I worked harder than him. I got a bit of luck in terms of like people getting injured around me. He had quite a few injuries which hindered him. But I got that luck where people around me in my position was getting injured and I wasn't. And with the work ethic I had to try and be the best and want to be the best, and the coaches pushing me more than some of the others, I would say, I was able to get that opportunity. But the pressure was always there. It was always there from a young age, from 9 years old when I signed for West Ham. The pressure was there because of my older brother. But the pressure to actually become a footballer and the pressure from the actual football club, it came to me about 17 when I signed my first professional contract. So when I started to earn like decent money, and I hadn't played in the first team yet, then the pressure really started to kick in. We're paying you this money, you've not played yet. It's time to start knuckling down and trying to get into the first team. And I didn't shy away from the hard work. I faced the hard work up. I faced anything that they threw at me. I faced it up and I dealt with it. And through that and being mentally strong enough, because you have to be mentally strong in this game. Any athlete will tell you, and we'll put the equivalent to the NFL, to the English Premier League, to soccer and what you guys call football. You're a commodity. You're looked upon as money, and if you're not delivering, then they're cutthroat. They will cut you. They will say you're not good enough, and off you go. You have to go and live a normal life. It's the same with soccer. It's the same with the English Premier League. If you're not good enough, they cut you, and you got to go and live a normal life. But are you prepared for that normal life if you don't get it? If you don't get it, the only person really that I've seen a few of my friends actually who have been able to do it, but they've had to go through certain things in their life to get into a place where they can actually feel like they're mentally stable to go and do something in normal life, we'll call it. But Io really is the only one who had a plan. when he got cut, he had a plan, and his plan was there, and it's come to fruition. He went and studied in America. I had some of my greatest times over in South Carolina with you guys, coming over at weekends when we had no game to come and party and see what it was like. What all the things that we watch in movies with the red cups in the college dorms and that. I was actually living it for you guys, and it was fantastic. But I was the only one who had a plan. And as we know today, he's doing fantastically well. He's been successful in his own right because of his work ethic that was installed not only by his parents, but West Ham Academy.
Yeah, testament to Io, and really driven, motivated for sure. The guy's the absolute workhorse, and I think that's really important. And like you're saying, it's sort of like similar in the U.S. at universities, establishments. It's different because it's not the exact same, but in these major brands, major clubs, it sounds like there's a lot that goes into that, and there's a lot of sort of regiment and training and discipline. So that's it's great to hear. And West Ham is a strong brand. I mean, it's one of the top clubs that's been in the Premiership the majority of the time, I guess, in and maybe out, sometimes relegated. But during your time there, you guys, actually, I want to ask you because, I didn't realize this until recently, and I've gotten really, really into the business side of sports and just seeing how it works. And it's fascinating. Even the MLS now, I think the minimum team is valued at $500 million, and a lot of these, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's the right number. I think it used to be 25 million, like the minimum to come in, and now they're around 500. And obviously the EPL right there on par with NFL teams, even some of the biggest clubs, the more expensive, valued at the Man Uniteds, and some of these teams are the biggest in the world. But that playing game, I was reading so West Ham was from the division below at one point, I think right around when you were 16, 17, 18. And that game is actually the most expensive game in the world. That playing game to get from
it's called the playoff game. Yeah,
I mean, that's got to be because if I'm not mistaken, I think you guys like won 2-1 to get into the playoff, and then you won 1-0 to get into the Premier League. Tell me a little bit about that game, what that's like, and that's got to be immense pressure. How old were you when that happened, and like what is going on? How does the manager? I mean, everyone's so much at stake because if you don't make it in, the team could disband, in terms of the contracts, what people are able to pay, what's on the line for you, what's on the line for everybody, also to keep the unit probably more intact, right? Because if you get some of the guys at Premiership level or it's close, like if they don't make it now, maybe they go to other teams, you lose. So how I mean, I can't even imagine what the atmosphere was like, and how much pressure is that?
Yeah, it was crazy. There was like 90,000 people in there. I was 19 years old at the time, so I'm young. It was my second season in the first team. I'd made my debut in the first team at 18 years old, but I was 19 now. I'd played maybe 30 games. That was probably like my 30-something game for the first team. And yeah, the pressure was immense, because as you say, it's one of the most expensive games. I think that game today is worth 150 million to one team.
Yeah, I heard 200 million. I heard it's like it can be as big
200 million.
Massive.
When I played in it, what we're talking 17 years ago, something like that, maybe a bit longer than that. It was worth 50 million then.
The pound strong. I remember in 06 being a college student coming over with it was 2-1 on the dot to the dollar. So it's expensive still. Yeah, that was big. So how do you guys, like, how can you possibly put that into perspective? Did you realize, does everyone know how big it is? Like, can you feel the energy? Is the manager tense? Are the players, like, how are you feeling? Because what's at stake. So how do you, what's on your mind there? One game, one goal, one mistake could cost literally. I mean, that's stuff that, talk about like World Series or NFL Super Bowls, like it's up there. Like that's something people never forget. You won the game, someone lost the game. I mean, that's a huge butterfly effect on everything. Like how do you, how do you think your mentality, and I mean, also having a lot of responsibility playing center back, you're constantly one little touch to the left or right, a guy rips it in on you, and you can get blamed for that. How is, give me a little bit of a look at how you prepare, or you just try not to think about it and block it out. What are some things you do?
I mean, you know me better than probably most people in terms of when it comes to football, because you used to ask me a lot of questions about how I prepared for games. I remember you being quite intrigued in how I prepared for games and how I was. I was just super focused. I had done my homework on the players I was playing against. I hated excuses. I never wanted an excuse. If I didn't play well, I didn't play well because I wasn't good enough on the day. I never wanted an excuse to say I didn't play well because um, I didn't prepare right. I didn't play well because I didn't sleep much last night. I didn't eat the right food. I don't tolerate that type of excuse for myself. So I always made sure that I was prepared right. I'd done my research on the player I was playing against. Um, so nothing was a surprise to me in the game. And I went out there with no fear. I had no fear, Jeff. I had no fear. I was born to do this, and this is what I'm going to do. And there's a team standing in the way of me playing in the best league in the world, and they're not going to be that. They're not going to be able to stand in the way of me. That's how I went out on the pitch. I went out on the pitch in my head, thinking I was the best player that was going to be on that pitch today. And that's just the way that I was mentally. I was mentally driven. I was mentally strong, and my footballing ego was there for everyone to see. I knew I was a good player in my own right, and I just there was things that I dreamt of, which was to play in the English Premier League, the EPL, and no one was getting in the way of that. And that's how I felt on that day going into it. So I was quite calm. But I played in the FA Cup final, which is probably the oldest cup in world football. I played in that game, and it's a massive game that's viewed worldwide. I played in that game a year later, and I felt more pressure in the playoff game than I did in the FA Cup final game. So that gives you a bit of context as to how important and how big that playoff game is.
Yeah, and is there something now? Because you mentioned about I want to talk about as well the management agency New Era that you're involved with, which also I guess in terms of your the Ferdinand football group. Is this something? Do you feel that there's a lack of? Is that what you're truly trying to provide, like for youth? Is it for much younger or people that like are just coming into the level that you're at? Because it just seems like the mentality now, there's so much about mental health, right? Like there's a lot on the line. I actually was at the final, the FA or the Euros, right? And the penalty kick shootout. And I was in Wembley. I mean, that was, that's heavy stuff. PKs, there's all kinds of stuff happening. It's a mental game. Like, is that something that you're taking experiences and you're trying to help people in general, like to learn about, like even like coming in, you were 18, 19, 20. I remember we were going out to the nightclubs, it was crazy, right? Like it was absolute mayhem. But like, is that really what you're trying to do, is focus and get people to kind of be more prepared? Is that one of your major driving forces?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with Ferdinand Football Group, it's more like, so we have teams you come in from the age of 4, from the age of 3, sorry, you come in. And then we're going to be offering apprenticeships for kids at 16 when they finish school. If they want to do an apprenticeship with Ferdinand Football Group, they can. But our hashtag at Ferdinand Football Group is it's everybody's game. We're diverse, we're inclusive, and things that I've been through in my career, I don't want the next generation and the young generation to go through that. And then into my day-to-day working job that I do, where I mentor for global sports management, Neuro Global Sports Management. That's for the elite players, really, the players who play at the same level that I played at or higher. For me to try and guide them, to try and give them the best possible advice. You like I say, me, Jeff. My advice will only come from a good place. I want people to do better than I did. And if I can play a part in helping them get more appearances in the Premier League than I did, play for their country more times than I did, then great, I've done my job, and that's what I live for now, is to see the next generation thriving more than I did.
Yeah, it's amazing to look back. I mean, seeing how many years. I mean, 10 years. That's a long. I don't know the average career in the EPL, but I know in the NFL it's like 3 seasons or something. I imagine there's some turnover and stuff. And looking back too to West Ham, he played 138 games. 5 goals as a defender, some great memories, great runs. I mean, West Ham was generally. What was your average finish there? Like you guys were usually. I mean, you were in the mix. I mean, you weren't like generally like almost relegated. You were up there. What was do you remember your best season? Like what was the best finish?
We finished seventh in the league. My first year in the Premier League, we finished seventh in the league and got to the final of the FA Cup. I'd say that this the West Ham team that all the United States are seeing today is a fantastic team. The EPL lovers in the US that watch West Ham today, they're fantastic. I think this is the only team that could really rival my team that played. We finished seventh in the league. This is the only team that's done better than what we've done. So we wasn't far behind this team, I would say. But yeah, we never ever. I've never ever got relegated in my footballing career, and that's a stat that I'm very happy with. I've been in some relegation battles, but I've never been relegated.
I saw another stat where I don't know if it was here or somewhere else, but it was interesting. Oh yeah, okay, here. Clean sheets 47. I mean, that means out of the 218 games in the Premier League, you put up the team like basically a quarter of the time scored 0 goals. That's pretty crazy. I mean, that seems like a shocking stat, honestly. Like that, I mean, that's a lot. To go into EPL and like a quarter of the time you go in and no one's scoring a goal and you're the center, kind of captain of the back there. So what? I mean, that's impressive. What is that normal or is that seems like, because I see goals happen all the time. Is that like a high percentage? It seems high.
Yeah, that's a high percentage. I think a lot of people, because I was Rio Ferdinand's brother, who was the best over a long period, over a 10-year period, definitely in the Premier League, but I'd say in the world of football as a defender. Because I was always compared to him, people forget how good I actually was. I prided myself on clean sheets, and to get them clean sheets that you said in the English Premier League just tells you how hard I was willing to work and how much I was willing to put my body in the line to make sure that West Ham won games.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. And looking back though, I remember a memory, like is there any times that stand out? Because I know that I went to the game with you. It was the last game at Highbury between Arsenal and Man U. It was 0-0. Thierry Henry, and your brother there, they tie 0-0. And I'll never forget after the game, your brother, we're outside kind of waiting. And then like Man U, it's later, and that they get on the bus. Everyone gets on the bus and they ride home. And you remember that your brother stayed behind. He didn't get on the bus. Then he shot into a cab. I remember going to a McDonald's with him. I think I shared a taxi with him and someone else. And then we were out, and I have some pictures from that night in the nightclub. And like, yeah, what was you probably didn't get to do too often during the times your schedules matched up. And it was during season, and it was the end of the game. Do you like that? For me, I mean, obviously that was pretty crazy, right? Because he arguably was the most famous, biggest player in the world, the captain, national team captain of Man U. That stands out for me because obviously it's your brother. Is there any other like memories like that, like where you got to hang out or be together during the top of your career? I mean, that's gotta be cool to be in the EPL. You're both in the EPL. It's not easy to do. There's not many brothers probably that are in the EPL together, right? Like, I mean, is it one of a few?
No, yeah, we're one of a few. Our schedules were always the same. We always played on the weekend. When we had family stuff going on, me and Rio were never there. We were working. That's how it was. That's what the sacrifice is. To be in an elite sport, you have to sacrifice, and sometimes that means sacrificing parts of your family life. We never done much whilst we were both playing at the top together. But now we're both retired. We both got our own families, and we do more than we probably have done over the years. And it's fantastic. We were always close. We always speak. We always spoke on the phone. And like you said, when you came to a game, he treated you like he'd known you for years. You stopped off at McDonald's. We went out. That was probably a rare occasion that we was able to do that. It was only really in the summer we was able to do that. But through the season, that was probably one of the only occasions that we could actually do it. And I probably had training the next day, by the way, as well. So, but I would sacrifice. I would think, okay, I want to go out with my brother. I haven't got a game for like another 5 days, so I'll go, and that's how it was.
For sure. And what is in terms of being compared and all that, like that obviously is a lot of pressure, but it's also pretty cool to have your brother be in that level, playing at the highest level. what was some of the things that you think that he instilled in you, that he taught you or showed you, that was an advantage that you believe maybe either rubbed off on you or just kind of you saw what it took? Is there anything that he really, is there one or two things that just sort of you noticed and maybe you got from him that you would say over the years that was different than, having an advantage in a way to be able to have the access to see and know his information? You believe it was take away the pressure? What was like some of the great parts about that?
The good things were everyone that I was playing against in the Premier League had already played against them, so I could ring him and ask him what their strengths were, And the only game that he wouldn't do that was when I played against him. When I played against Man United, we wouldn't talk. For that week leading up to the game, we wouldn't speak. But being able to ring him and say to him, okay, you played against Thierry Henry, what is he like? You played against Suarez, what was he like? You played against Torres, what was he like? And I had the privilege I had the beauty of being able to ring him as my brother to ask him that question. And also just seeing his work ethic, seeing him become who he did, being able to buy our parents' homes and seeing what their faces were like when he gave them the keys to the house. It put a drive in me. I wanted to see that face from my mum, from my dad, but because I had done something for them, because I had bought them something, because I had worked hard and repaid them for everything they had done for us up to this moment. I wanted to see their faces glow with pride and happiness for me, not just for my brother, but for me. And when seeing that happen with my brother, the drive that I had in me went to another level.
Very cool. I want to ask you about some of your business ambitions, because looking at now, as we said, like MLS teams have shot up in crazy value. Sports is becoming, it's a big business. There's so much in the U.S. with sports that legal at a federal level. There's sports betting. There's fantasy. I think that's maybe becoming a little more popular over there. It's like huge here for NFL. I don't know if that's EPL, if there's much, daily fantasy manager, these type of games. Is that something? Do you have any interest in ownership and sort of like coming in? Because I know the guy, I'm going to get his name wrong, but there was a guy at Brighton as well. I think Tony Bloom maybe, but then there's, is that right? Is it Tony Bloom?
I'm not sure.
But there's another one, Brentford or Brent, like one of these teams that came up. This guy who has a background. Yeah, and they're now in the Premier League. Do you have interest? Is that something where you would be to come in, get involved with the club in the first, second, third division, be a part of that, sort of get involved and sort of build up? Does that excite you? Does that interest you? Do you have anything like that that you want to do?
Yeah, definitely. I'm ambitious. I think outside the box. I like things that don't seem reachable to me, and to try and get them as close to me as possible where I can grab them. That's the way that I am. Being involved in the club in some capacity, especially at board level. I don't want to be just involved in the club and working for a club day to day. I want to be somewhere where I can implement positive change, whether that's being more inclusive from an ethnic minority point of view, helping the strive for more black coaches, and stuff like that, where I can be part of the decision-making table. If I can get into a place of that where I'm part of that decision-making table, where I'm part of the board and I have a say in a football club, then that's where I want to get to. How long that will take to get there, I don't know, but I'm working hard every day to try and get to that place. I'm learning business. My business acronyms got better. Anton, the footballer, is finished now. I want to be known as Anton Ferdinand, the person who gives back to the next generation, to the people of his community, and want to be known as an entrepreneur. And that's what I'm working and striving to be.
Is that something as well, the Ferdinand group that you're talking about, is maybe kind of building it more along the way? Because I think, I noticed, obviously, you remember, Michael Phelps, right? We actually in London, we hung out. Obviously, I lived with him for almost 8 years. And, same kind of thing, right? When you are at the highest level, you're generally focused, which makes sense. You're like super focused, but there's still time, you're playing video games, you're doing stuff, right? That like to find sort of to build adjacently this business knowledge and acumen, because I think this is something that you see it now. There are major athletes that are really getting in to the right spots now, where they're sort of building their portfolio, not waiting till they retire, but sort of building along as they're going. You see in the NBA, you see some of the biggest names, they're getting into crypto now and in these different deals and sort of like blossoming as they go. Is that really what it is, or is it more about support, mental health, or is that Ferdinand Group the whole package, where you basically are like, look, we're going to teach you business, we're going to teach you life, and we're going to help you kind of grow as a person, not just become, because athletes, like you said, only a few percent, of course, make it, right? If that.
Yeah. For me and Ferdinand Football Group, it's when I address parents that bring their children to Ferdinand Football Group, I'm like, listen, if football can do what it done for me, in terms of helping my family create the person, that's what football done with me. The size 5 football helped create the person that you see today, and if it can do that, we might not get one successful Premier League player through Ferdinand Football Group. That's a fact. It might not happen. If we do get one or two, then great, but it may never happen. But if I can sit here and say that we've created some good human beings, I'm happy with that, and Ferdinand Football Group's more of a passion for me. It is a business, but it is more of a passion for me, where I can try and bridge the gap between the grassroots football, which is the Sunday League football, with the academy football and professional football. I'm trying to help bridge that gap where a lot of people do use football as a way to monetize and make lots of money. And there's a lot of coaches making a lot of money off of families who are trying to get their son or their daughters into the best academies by doing extra training. I want to try and bridge the gap where they don't have to pay for that. And I'm in talks with some organizations, some companies now, which hopefully will come in and finance the academy part of my Ferdinand Football Group, so that the kids and the parents can have that for free, and then everyone's on a level playing field, where there might be some families with low income who can't afford to do that, so their child ain't getting the same opportunities as the families who live a middle class life, and I want to try and bridge that gap, because I believe everyone deserves that opportunity. I was able to get that, and I came from a poor background, and I was able to get that. But now it's becoming harder and harder for people who are growing up in the same areas that I grew up in. So if I can bridge that gap for everybody and have everybody on a level playing field, then I feel like I've done my job. But in terms of other businesses, I'm into properties. I enjoy property stuff. I enjoy crypto. I dabble a little bit. Nothing major, but I dabble a little bit. Obviously, NFTs is going crazy at the moment, and I'm learning about that, and because I won't invest without learning. So I'm learning about it at the moment, and when I feel more comfortable, then I'll be investing if I feel it's the right thing for me. But right. Listen, I want to be involved in business. Is my new thing,
It's fun, right?
It is. People talk about. So as a footballer, as a soccer player who retired, the biggest thing was standing, and I'll give you a context to it. The biggest thing is standing in the tunnel before you go out to the game. So you're in a tunnel, a tight tunnel. You can't see nothing. You can't see the pitch. You can't see nothing, but you can hear everything. You can hear 60, 70,000 fans shouting, screaming, singing songs, but you can't see it. That buzz that you get, not being able to see something, but hearing it, but no, and anticipating what's coming, that's like a drug. It's like it's the hairs on the back of my neck just stand up talking about it now. It's a drug. It's fantastic. When you retire, you need to try and get something nothing's ever going to be that, but you need something that's going to give you that give you a buzz. And I found that in business, just going to meetings. In my head, I'm going to a meeting thinking, I'm one meeting away from going there. You're always one meeting away from going there. I know, and I'm not stupid. I know not every meeting is going to be good. I know not every meeting is going to be successful, you know, but you're always one meeting away from going where you want to be, and that excites me. You know, that's the adrenaline in me that gets me going. You know, and I'm open to learning new things. You know, so as I said to you, I want to be known as an entrepreneur, and that's hopefully where I'm heading.
I gotta put you in touch with my buddy who's literally, so he's from the UK. He's one, you may even somehow have heard of him or seen him somewhere because he's a poker player, but he's just a sharp guy. He's obsessed with football. They started a club. I think there's this one football club that's like, I forget the name of it, where it's like hashtag or something United, where they built up this whole thing, like a media company, right? So I'll show you real quick. I just want to give him a shout out and also just show you, because I remember actually visiting you in Sunderland. I think that was the last time I saw you, like a decade ago. You were playing there. We came up there, and Newcastle's in far. So my friend, they created a team. It's called Newcastle Independent, and this is their thing, Goat on the Gram. But they're building from the bottom, right? Like literally from the bottom, building us. They got content. They got a great team, and they're literally coming up through. But this guy, I'm begging him to let me invest. I don't like they already have in their thing. But if you're looking for something that's kind of fun and to come in, he's the analytical guy. He's #1 ranked player online, poker player in the world right now. His name's Patrick Leonard. Also, he's a member of Party Poker with me. Anyway, remind me about it because it's kind of fun. And for me, like, there's nothing more exciting. Like, to me, my goal, and I think almost anyone in business that loves sports, is like, you know, at some point to own a club, right? Like, it'd be just fun, you know, when you're in 20, 30 years that you are owner or part owner of like a major club. I don't know, that maybe it's everyone's dream, right? I just feel like that would be the kind of ultimate to now esports, 100%. Right? There's these opportunities. You start hearing about it, and you know, these are getting huge. So anyway, remind me about it. But it just reminded me because of Newcastle. It's sort of, I know you spent some time in Sunderland, and I wouldn't bet against this guy. If I could buy the stock right now, I'm sure they're going to be in the Premier League. I would bet, or like the Championship in like 10 years. So anyway, if you're interested, could be a way to get in at the ground and kind of fun. But you know, shout out to Patrick Leonard.
We'll talk. Jack.
I'm a business. You know, you remember me back in the day, man. I was on affiliate deals, and I've always been kind of, you know, cutting edge on what's happening. I like to move. I was at poker, I'm still in, but you know, crypto's obviously more exciting. So yeah, we'll after the podcast, love to chat a bit about sort of business and what you got going and what's going on. But so let's talk about a couple of adversities. Like this whole thing, we mentioned briefly South Carolina. You came several times, had a great time, right? It's kind of fun. US is completely different. Just like when I went to the UK first, you know, to London, it's like it's just like, wow, this is completely different setups. You come to South Carolina, a few good trips, but then the one that was sort of didn't go so well was when you guys had a time off, right? A few days, and then you flew over. You said you were going to some island or something nearby, which you got permission for, but you flew to South Carolina. This was 2007. So like, we're a little bit before social media, where like camera phones and you can kind of get around, and you're not just going to get like whatever. Nowadays, forget it. Anyone, anywhere doesn't, like, it's just like a thing. It's on TMZ or whatever. What was this like? And was this, you know, it sounded, you got fined, I think 40,000 pounds or something, which is a lot of money. But what was that like when you came over?
I wish it was 40,000 pounds. Believe me, I wish.
Okay, so that's the number I saw, but it's not. There was more at stake than that. Huh? Tell me first of all, what happened when you went through your mind? Like, you're like, all right, I'm gonna come. It'll be fun. It's a long trip though, too, right? There's probably, like, in your head, it's like, oh, it's a big deal if I'm in here, but it kind of makes sense because it's like the time zones, a lot of travel in a short period. You're at your like. Give me a little bit of a background story, and looking back, how was this like? Wow, not a big deal, or like, man, this was dumb to do.
I sit here now and say it was dumb, but I still say what a great time I had. It was worth it, I'd say.
The English Ballers Bash, right?
Remember? It was my 21st. It was actually coming around my 21st birthday. It was as well.
Yeah.
And remember, it was a nightclub called Sharkies. It was Sharkies, isn't it?
Good memory. Yeah. I forgot that name. Yes, and 5 points in Columbia, South Carolina. Here's a Premier League player coming over. A couple guys, actually. I think there were a couple players. I don't know if they got mentioned or not. But over there, and tell me what ensued and how did that actually come about? Because I think part of the logic was, man, U.S. doesn't respect football. Like, this is 2006, the English Premier League, which is the biggest in the world, but no one knows really people in, footballers.
I could just come and be a normal kid. That's what it was. I could just come and be. I was just about to turn 21. I just wanted to be a normal kid for a weekend. No one don't know who I am. I can do what you guys are doing, just living. And that's what I wanted to do for my 21st birthday. The previous year, I remember I had a party in South Carolina. The previous year, around the same time. So I knew it was doable. Even though we only had the weekend off, I knew it was doable. I would leave. If we had Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, I could leave. There was always a business flight on Thursday evening, from one of the airports in London to New York, and then I'd transfer to Charlotte.
It's an aggressive trip. That is a long way, though. You got to fly over, take a connection, and then from Charlotte, it's like an hour, 2-hour drive. So, I mean, this is like, fly to New York City, go out for the night.
That was the only on the way there. But on the way back, I used to take the flight from Charlotte, because there was a flight direct from Charlotte to London. But I had to get that business flight to New York, otherwise I would have missed the day. So I had to get that business flight to New York on the Thursday night to make sure that I was in the US by the Friday, So then at least I got like 2 days. And I'd leave Sunday.
When you got back, was it already like on the table, or did they sit you down when you got there? Or did it come out a little after? How did that go? Like,
it came out 3 weeks after the party, man. I had a party, it was an unbelievable party. You would know, you was there. It was unbelievable. And when I alluded to earlier, mine was probably the first of like the social media, but without social media. There was actually an American West Ham fan who went to South Carolina University, was in the party. Was actually in the party, and he after that night, he went on all the fan blog sites on the internet and was like, I just come back from Anton Ferdinand's party in South Carolina. It was unbelievable. Gave a bit of context to what it was, and yeah, man, it just went from here to here, like very, very quickly. Within a couple of weeks, the newspapers in England had got hold of it, and they rang the club to ask if I had gone there, because we was in a relegation battle at the time. We weren't doing particularly well, which made it even worse that I'd gone.
Right.
And they had asked if I'd been, and the press woman came to me at West Ham and said, "Have you been to America?" I went, "No chance of going to America." And she went, "Okay, well, they're asking me. Like, I know you went, but they're asking me." I went, "No, I never went." They went, "I know you went, but they're asking me, where did you go?" And I just said, "I went to go and see my nan and granddad in the Isle of Wight, which is like an hour away from England, not even that." And it's like, okay, and that became the story. Anton lied and said he went to go and see his sick nan and granddad. So like they said, that my sick nan and granddad, and boy, that story blew up, man. It's
crazy, right? The media. I mean, you experience it, you've seen it. I mean, Rio's under a microscope. I see the audit. Like, it's crazy, right? It really is. Like, people are just looking, though. Do you feel that's true in media? They're looking to build you up to bring you down? Like, because I mean, it's just part of like the industry. Is that how you feel, or how do you perceive like the UK, like the media over there in general?
The UK media is like that 100%. They build you up to knock you down. They say you're the best, you're going to be this, you're going to be that. The minute you do one thing wrong, they cut your legs off, man, from underneath you. But if you're stupid enough to give them the reason to do that, then they're going to do that. That's how it goes. And would I change what I'd done? No, I wouldn't. Would I tell a young player coming through now not to do it? Yes, I would tell them not to do it, because it cost me a lot of money. I got fined 6 week wages, so that was 2 weeks wages for 3 months, because you can only get 2 weeks wages fine per month. So it was 2 weeks wages for 3 months. I got on the bounce, I got fined, and but I'm here to tell the story.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I guess again, it's also young, and yeah, it's sort of it's crazy that it got like that much that it happened like that. But again, it makes sense. There's rules for a reason. Also, people are looking out for the best interests. A lot of travel, a lot at stake. Tell me a bit about your journey through the different teams. So you're at West Ham. I mean, look at this run here. So you're there from the youth team. I mean, this is a long time. You're there in '94. Come through the system. Actually, stay in the main system. You guys are in the EPL. And then what was it like? Sort of give me just like kind of a brief transition in these things, because how is it to move from your sort of like what where you grew up, your thing, and then when it actually is like I'm getting transferred to Sunderland, you're still a Premier League team. What was this? You played a lot of games there. What was this like? Because I mean, now you're out of London, you're in a different place. I don't know. Obviously, in the U.S., there's New York City. There's L.A., like the major cities, and then there's Green Bay Packers. There's other clubs that are great or things, but it's different sort of lifestyle and just change in general. To have to move, take your stuff, new team, new manager, new everything. How is transitioning through? Give me a couple. I mean, this is obviously the biggest one, probably the first one. But then there were some other different changes. What was this like to move from West Ham?
Yeah, it was hard. It was the first time I'd moved away from my family home, from my mum, my dad, my brothers and my siblings. First time I'd moved away. I had to grow up, and I'd moved. Sunderland had bought me for £8 million. Just for some context, today that value, we're talking £30 million probably today. In today's game, £8 million probably £30 million today. So it was a lot of money, a lot of pressure came with that price tag. I was there to make them better, but I was a kid who'd left his hometown and had to go and grow up, and as I say, the club helped me a great deal. A lot of good people at Sunderland. The player liaison, Nadia, she was fantastic. She became like a second mum to me. One of the masseuses, Billy, who sadly is not with us anymore. He was like an uncle to me. If I needed anything done, if I needed help with anything, them two really were the two people who I could really count on. And they took that pressure off of me in terms of my away from football. If I needed things done, if I need to learn how to do something, they would teach me. So they were fantastic for me, and I have fond memories of playing for Sunderland. You came up there and spent quite a bit of time in Newcastle, at my house in Newcastle. You saw how much I enjoyed it when you came. We lived a good life. I probably partied more up there than I did when I was in England. When I was in London. Yeah. And it was just something that I felt I needed to do at the time. I didn't want to leave West Ham, but I felt like I needed to, and I needed to go and grow up. Things had happened in my career off the pitch that I needed to not let happen, and some of that was having to move away from London, but I still didn't want to go. The club half forced me out because they needed the money, and that was the end of it. I said anything that came my way, I dealt with it head on, and I made the best. I made the best version of any negative situation. I made the best version of it, and that's what I've done throughout my life and throughout my career.
Absolutely, and tell me a bit about what like your team consisted of, and it consists of, and what you would maybe have do differently now that you have the experience and looking back. Like, was it, I should have had a manager, I should have had an assistant, or did you? And what about like an agent? Because this is something that having Rio, I would imagine, who is dealing with almost everyone in professional sports have agents. So like, did you already, was it kind of like you were tucked in, where it's like you had good support, or were you like kind of, was it, because that's got to be stressful too with these deals. These are major deals. There's a lot going on, like, transfer fees and this and that. So yeah, tell me a bit about that management agency.
I had an agent at the time. His name was Penny Sahavi. He's one of the biggest agents in world football. He's the one who actually done that deal from West Ham to Sunderland. You know, it was. But
He
yeah,
was Rio's
he
agent as well. I know that name.
yeah.
He was one of the
Yeah,
biggest
Kings.
agents there was, or
Yeah, so
is he still
anything
doing?
to do with Neymar, Tevez, he's involved in any big deal that happens in football. He will be involved somewhere along the line, 100%. But it was like, so he was my football agent, you know, and that was it. Now people have a team for their football, a team for their media, a team for their home life. You know, that's the way it goes. I never had that. I had an agent, and that was it. And I had family. That was it. So yeah, there was none of that. If like it's different now. As I say, I mentor players. Have mentors now. I had a mentor in Rio, but Rio was away playing, trying to be the best he could be. So you know, he had to be selfish to be the best. You know, he would help me out from time to time with advice, or when I was playing against a player, I would ring him and he'd tell me about the player and stuff. But in terms of being a constant mentor, you know, and trying to differentiate that brother and a mentor, you know, because he was my brother at the end of the day, you know, and want to keep that brotherly relationship rather than just, oh, every time I speak to him, it's about football. It's about him being a mentor. Like, you know, you don't know how far you want to push that because he's your brother at the end of the day.
Right,
But he wanted to be the best, and he had to be selfish to be the best, and I understood and accepted that.
for sure.
But I didn't have no, and this is why I'm so passionate about doing what I'm doing now in terms of the mentorship to the next generation, and trying to make sure players don't make the same mistakes as I did, because I wish I had that.
Yeah, no, it's amazing how much it's evolving and just all these different things. You got to realize like it's interesting because a lot of players still probably don't have the proper help or the proper system in place, and it's so hard because you're practicing, you're training, you're just kind of going, and it's tough to have someone sort of sit you down and take you're tired too, right? You train, you do all this stuff. It's like, all right, I want to relax a little bit and not necessarily just be flooded with business or all these other side situation. And let's jump over to QPR because this is where you go. Then you bounce. You go from Sunderland. You head over to QPR. You're back. This is in London. I'm not less familiar with the club, but this is which part of London is this in?
They're in West London. They are
West London. So
they're
now you go from kind of outside of London. You're back in London, and how was this like? Obviously, you have this incident that happens with John Terry. Huge case. It's a documentary. Maybe you can tell people where they can see that, because I know this was very well reviewed and well received from people, and this was a big deal. I mean, this was also pretty crazy, right? Because John Terry, who you could argue him and Rio, kind of the two pillars, right? They were side by side for, I don't know, a decade or more, captain in between Rio and John Terry, Chelsea, Man United, the big guys, right? This is like him and Rio are the pillars of English football, and now your brother, who's with side by side with him, you guys have this crazy incident. I mean, I don't want to, I know you talked about this probably 100 times. You've done a documentary. People can watch this. So I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but I guess tell me a little about QPR, and then tell me about, just quickly sort of explain what happened with this and how did this sort of like mentally, how was this to like be like, wow, this guy, because I remember he wrote like he's writing jerseys, signing, you're talking to him, maybe on the side, or you guys have had words. Obviously,
yeah.
there's respect, at some level within, or how you believe there's a respect between him and Rio, and this whole thing was it just kind of like got to be shocking? And explain a bit about this if you don't mind. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I know you talked about probably 100 times.
No, it's fine. So I left Sunderland to go back to London and sign for QPR. QPR just come up to the Premier League from the Championship, and they wanted some experienced defenders. So I came. I went to QPR. Was having a fantastic time, and then we were playing a derby, Chelsea versus QPR. It's a massive West London derby. John Terry plays for Chelsea. I play for QPR. You put into context, like obviously I knew John Terry for a long time through him playing with Rio for many years. And we was on the pitch, and we was beating them at the time, and something happened, and he allegedly racially abused me. I have to use the word allegedly because he was found not guilty in the court of law. But the video is there for everyone to see. The camera panned in on his face when he was allegedly saying a racist slur. that he was later acquitted in the court of law for. I've since then, that was 11 years ago now, and I've since then made a documentary about it because at the time I didn't speak up. I didn't speak up at the time. I didn't speak out for reasons that if you did go and watch documentary, you can see it. The documentary aired on BBC iPlayer. I think for those in the US, you need to change your location to get it. But I would say it is worth a watch to try and understand and see how big the situation was. I think it's probably the biggest racism incident within soccer worldwide. The only other one that's definitely bigger than it, I would say, is Colin Kaepernick's situation. But other than that, I'd say this is probably the second biggest in terms of sport that's happened. And this incident saw a downturn in my footballing career. I never played in the Premiership again after, and I was made to leave and go and play in a foreign country because people in England, clubs in England, didn't want to be associated with me.
And when this happens in the moment though, because did you actually? So I've seen the video. It looks pretty apparent. You can see it and all this. But did you hear it? Like, was it like a thing at the moment? And I mean, people say stuff like, you've been playing a long time. And was it, I mean, people say stuff, people get heated, but like, does this stand out as like, really like no one's ever said something quite like this? Or was this just like out of bounds? Or is this, because people, they're slang in the UK too, and people say these words and you wank this and that. But like, I mean, this was flagrant. Was it at the moment, like, were you like, what was this shocking, or have you heard similar things, or just from his stature and the whole situation? Like, well, give me a little more like how
No, I never heard it at the time, and that's what allowed people to control my narrative on the situation because I never heard it, and it was just a video that everyone could watch, and make out of it what they wanted to make out of it. So I never heard it at the time. My reaction would have been really different. Would have been majorly different if I'd heard it. But it's not, when you're talking about a racial slur, an alleged racial slur, that's not known. That's not heard of. That's not something. Yeah, you hear people say, they're having banter and saying stuff, but anything to do with someone's race, it is. For me, it's not banter. For me,
of course,
it's not tolerated. Exactly, yeah. It's not tolerated, and it's something that shouldn't be in sport. Is it in sport? Yes, it is. Does it seem to be getting better in soccer? It seems to be, in terms of player on player and it being out there in terms of at the stadiums where the fans are saying racist remarks. It has got better. Is it where we want it to be? No, it isn't. But where it's alarming is on social media. Social media presence of racism and discrimination of all forms on social media is something that is alarming, and it's something that I've been in talks with Twitter, Instagram, about the social media abuse, because I was impacted by it. I was receiving tens of thousands a day, daily, of racial abuse, daily, for a good 2-3 years. I can pick up my phone today and it won't go a week, 2 weeks without a racial slur coming onto my page. That's just, if I say the wrong thing or I mention anything to do with Chelsea, 100% I'm going to get a racial slur. That's just the way that my social media is now. But as I alluded to earlier, and I said just a minute ago, the Twitters of this world, the Instagrams of this world, the Facebooks of this world, until they're willing to make change, until they're willing to say, yes, okay, we're going to stamp this out, it's never going to go anywhere. And I think the only way to get rid of that is for there to be ID verification, you know, and so people can become accountable for what they're doing. You know, at the moment, they're not being held accountable for what they're doing, and that is a big problem. People can open an account just to abuse someone, and they shouldn't be able to.
That's a
You know,
great
and
point.
I think
I haven't thought about that specifically, but similar to with crypto and blockchain with IDs and
you have to
verification,
verify.
it's like, yeah, why, you know, I guess for padding stats, but there's so many fake accounts and bots too, all this stuff. Like, yeah, why not? Why, you know, take it the extra step. I guess obviously it's not black and white, because there is probably some, you know, they could argue that some places people couldn't have, you know, verification, or it's hard for them where they live. Maybe they're living in a country that's poor, but maybe then it's just, look, you can have an account, but you can't comment.
But
You know,
there's an ID verification route through
right?
through your banking. There's one.
No, I understand. I'm just saying, let's take like you know, countries, parts of the world where they don't have, you know. Listen, the one drop. I went down to.
I get you. I get
You
you. I
know
get you.
what
I
I'm saying?
get
I
you.
agree though. There's still ways that you can do stuff,
Yeah,
or at least like make it where there's
of
like, all
course,
right, if you want to comment, you got to figure out, you got to do this. Maybe you can have an account, but you
of
can't.
course.
Right? Yeah.
If you
So
if you wanna talk to people who have verified their page, you have to verify your page. I'm not talking about blue ticks now. I'm talking about
yeah,
society as a whole, the world as a whole.
yeah,
Everyone can verify their page to know that this is them. You know,
yeah.
so you're accountable for your actions on your page.
Right. So it's
You
a
know,
lot
once
harder to
that's
talk, to
done,
chirp and talk if yeah, it's like if you
exactly,
have a camera, you can't
exactly,
just say whatever you want on the field, and yeah, there's
exactly,
got to be accountability. I agree. I think that's
exactly.
I mean, there's room to improve and get better, and that's
And
powerful.
the tech's there, and I'm not being funny. And I've said this to Twitter. I've said this to Twitter USA. I've said this to the CCO or the COO. I can't remember. Yeah, the COO of Twitter, Sarah Parson. I've said this to her. You telling me that you can't stop people from tweeting? Like, you know, like on Twitter, you get 160 characters. If you go over the 160 characters, you can't physically press the tweet button. You know, if you say something that you shouldn't be saying on social media, you shouldn't be able to press that tweet button. And people will say to me, yeah, but how can it can't pick up the context of your tweet? It can't pick up the context. Of course it can. We're living in an era now where we got predicted text. So for it to predict your sentence, it must know the context that you're typing in. No? So if it can do that, surely they can pick up the context of if they use the word black, or if it's something to do with a woman and doing the iron, or the kitchen or the cooking. They'll know whether there's discrimination in it because they know the context of that sentence. Because they must have that through the powers of being able to know what I'm going to type in my sentence, you know. So it always goes back to them for me. Do they really want to make change? And at the moment, they don't, and that's the problem.
That's powerful. No, it's true, and it's powerful. I mean, that's the saying. You have a platform, and people are listening to the documentary. I gotta say, I have not seen it. I want to see it. I have heard a lot of people review it. I am going to watch it. I'm going to watch it this week because I just know, you know, obviously I know you and I know the right side here, but I know I'm on your team. It's just pretty crazy to me. It's a bit wild, the whole situation, and that we're still in this day and age that there's stuff like this can happen and people can sort of get away and skate by. So, you know, it sounds like you're on the right track and doing that. Do you want to take a few questions from Twitter? Tell me, I know you got to go here pretty soon. Are you like, do you have to run, or do you have a few? Can we take a few questions?
Yeah, I've got like 5 minutes.
Okay. All right. We'll take a few of these Twitter. I'll do this giveaway, and then also let me just real quick. Let me just grab a couple of these ones. So let's see. I got to ask, did you ever consider playing in the MLS in the United States? And what is your view on the MLS and how it's progressed over the last 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, I loved the MLS. I like watching it. I actually trained with Chicago Fire about 3.5 weeks in an off season. I was still contracted to Reading at the time, but I trained with them for 3.5 weeks, and if I would have been out of contract, I would have signed for them. I had a fantastic time in Chicago. Chicago's a fantastic city. Loved every minute that I had there. Met some great people, made some great friends who I still speak to now from across the pond. So yeah, Chicago Fire would have been my team I would have been playing for if I would have signed. And that was about what 6-7 years ago. So yeah, man. But I like to watch the MLS. Obviously, Bradley Wright Phillips is a good friend of mine who I've watched for many years. Play over there and do very, very well. You know, and there's other players over there. That Nedum Anu, I went over and played for Salt Lake. Liam Ridgewell played for the Portland Timbers. Not Timbers, sorry, Portland.
Yeah.
So yeah, I take an interest into the MLS, and so I like that because I trained with Chicago. I like the way the game's played. I like the way people train. I like the dedication. It mirrored me as a player. So I was invested. I'm invested in the MLS.
Very nice. Yeah, and shout out to Brad Gazan, who was in the MLS, came over and played. You know, he was at South Carolina. Very, very great guy, great work. He's been on the podcast as well, and he actually, you know, I think he played at Aston Villa for a decade.
Yeah, he did.
So he was,
He did.
you know, he's a beast. That guy's an absolute beast. U.S. men's national team keeper. Been on the team. So yeah, shout out to Brad. There. What can you foresee the day when U.S. football, soccer reaches parity with football in Europe? What would it take for the U.S. to make the jump to world-class levels? Why do you think? What's the reason? And is it, you know, keep a straight face? I can edit. You can tell me your real thoughts. Don't just let go. Can U.S. get to the top? And why has it been sort of a slow journey for U.S. soccer to catch up to European?
The salary cap is the biggest problem. You know, having a player in your team who's on $5 million a year, sitting next to somebody who's on $17,000 a year. That just don't make sense. It's hard to even comprehend just saying it out loud, you know. I think I understand why the salary cap has been put there because of what happened in previous years. So I understand that. But now we're talking about a game which is national, it's worldwide. You know, we're talking about a game that endorsement, because we know endorsement is the main financial power in the US when it comes to sports. When you package that with wealthy owners who want to own football clubs, you know, you just got to look at the likes of David Beckham. You know, with Miami, he's not the only one who's going to want to own a football club in the MLS. You know, and he's got powerful people behind him. He's got big, deep pockets behind him. You know, so when you combine the two, I think MLS have got the opportunity to go and become big again. I think it needs to just spread its wings. At the moment, they've still got that fear of what happened in years previously where they had to fold because of financial problems. But now we're dealing with a different animal now. It's a different beast now, you know, and a lot more Premier League teams are coming over in the summer to come and play. The sport's getting bigger in the US, which is fantastic. And because there's more eyes on the MLS now, there's no reason for the MLS to become a sporting brand that will need to fold anymore. You know, there's security there because ultimately the most important people are the fans, and there's a fan following of the MLS, and I think that's why at the moment we don't see it where it should be. Whereas I think in 10 to 15 years time, it has the capabilities to be massive and be big.
And as yourself, like, so your career, as your, excuse me, people are kind of transitioning. There's different clubs, different places in the world you can go. You've been to Turkey. There's other areas you can go and play. There's some clubs with big money and they do pay well. MLS is, where would you rank it though for someone? You see a lot of the big names going over and making their sort of farewell tour in the US. Is that something desirable? Like, is that what people are now kind of like, oh, I want to go to play in the MLS?
Yeah.
Would you say that's like a desirable location to sort of end your career now? In general, is that like,
yeah,
you feel that way?
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people are looking at it more. And there's two aspects, the top players can go there when they're older, when they're coming towards the end of their career. But as you see, some of them have gone there and struggled because of the pace of the game in MLS is frightening. It's very, very quick. So you've seen players go over there and struggle. But then you got people like Bradley Wright Phillips who went over there, who wasn't doing as well in English game and went over to the MLS, and he's carved out a career that a lot of people will be proud to have, and that's credit to him. So I think younger players are going out there now. Drew Yearwood, who's he's at New York Red Bulls. He was a young player playing with me at Southend. He's now playing in the MLS for the New York Red Bulls and doing very, very well. So a lot of younger players are starting to go out there. I urge young players who are in the Championship, who are in League One, who are good players, if they've got an opportunity to go and pave the way and be someone who that state look up to. So like Drew Yearwood's in New York, people in New York who follow football, they love him. There's more people that love him and get behind him in New York than they do in Southend or in England. So if you've got the opportunity to go and be a cult hero in a state, which some states, especially if it's a state that's bigger than London or bigger than England, so you've got an opportunity to go and do that, and things that can come off the back of that, and especially with America, where you can monetize so much with endorsements. I think if you're well versed and you're someone that does well in your sport, America's the place to be, because, as you know, it's endorsement driven, and I think, especially being English, and Americans love the English accent, and the English love the American accent. So it's like, it's a match made in heaven.
Yeah, it works well. All right. Well, I know you got to run, so I'm gonna just real quick. Tell me, we got a $50 giveaway for engagement. I'm gonna hit the button on your command when you tell me. We're gonna choose a winner. Thank you for all the questions on Twitter. I did ask some of them throughout, and hopefully we'll have you again on the future. Maybe this podcast is gonna go for another decade or so. I feel like you are just beginning in your career, your business career. Hopefully one day we'll be owners of a club, maybe together, partial, who knows? We'll talk about that in a more fun future of business. But real quick, you tell me when choose a winner. Someone's winning $50.
Jeff, just putting it out there in the verse, man. You're putting it out there in the verse, and you're putting it out there, man.
It's coming. Come with me, man. I'm going. I every day, man. Moving forward, like you said, good meetings, bad meetings. It's all part of the process, and it's exciting. It's fun. So you tell me when I'm going to choose a winner. Someone's going to win 50 US. I'm going to make it pounds. You know what? I'm going to convert it I'm just going to make it 100 US. Feeling so $100. Whatever that is in pounds, I'll give them $100. You choose a winner. Tell me when. I'm going to pick it right now.
Press it now.
Boom, there it is. I'm sure. Let's see who gets it. I'm gonna message them on Twitter. We got my man. Oh, he's masked up. He's protected. We got Hanio 75. You just won $100. I'm gonna message you, my friend. Oh, he's won before. Some guys have all the luck. Look at this. This guy's won giveaways in the past, But good for him. He wins again. And Anton, I know you gotta run, man. Cheers. Thank you so much. Last question. Who's the best center back in the world right now?
The best center back in the world right now? Oh. Ruben Diaz or Tony Rudiger.
Okay, I just learned something new. And I'm letting you go. I'm cutting you. I know I'm way over my time. Who wins the Champions League this year? Last question. I'm going to end it. I'm just going to click the button. I know I'm already over my time. Who's winning it?
Oh, I don't know, man. The Champions League. Whoa, that's an hard one.
Man United's. I'm sorry, Man City's the favorite.
Man City got a good chance.
Bayern's looking good.
I reckon it'll be Bayern or Man City.
All right, that's it. You're picking. You're not picking a dark horse here. Those are the two favorites. But I like your opinion. I trust your opinion. I appreciate you. I will message you on the side. Look forward to chatting more and hopefully diving into some business. And shout out to my boy Patrick Warner. I'm gonna put you in touch. Just don't forget me. Just bring it. Like I know you guys are on the same side. I want to come with. Don't leave me. I want to be a part of that process. All right.
No problem. Thank you very much, Chef. Thanks for having me, man.
Appreciate you. All the best to you and your family. Thank you so much.
You too, man. Love to the family.
You too, brother. Thank you. Thank you, Anton. All right, guys, that's Anton Ferdinand, number 159 in the books. We got the NFL safety for the Detroit Lions, Will Harris tomorrow, number 160. Big pods coming up. Really, really insightful. Appreciate the time. And again, Anton, I've known 15 years. Great guy. He always brought me in from before even right when he met me. He's just one of the real ones. So give him a follow. Check him out on the socials on Instagram, Twitter. And as he mentioned, he is involved with a lot of projects. So give him a follow. And best of luck to Anton. Thank you so much for the time. And we'll see you tomorrow on the podcast with Will Harris.
See you.
Sweet, man.